are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the College Loop Podcast, episode 263 of the College Loop Podcast. I'm Dylan Larck, able on Twitter, here to talk about yesterday's loss. Auburn, we talked about last week. You know, it felt like Auburn found a way around what we saw earlier on in the year. They found a stride. They found an identity. Running the football was a massive thing that this team needs to do to win a game. Well, yesterday, Auburn went out in the field and proceeded to not run the football and went back to losing. Auburn lost to Vanderbilt yesterday, 17-7, and I envy anybody who was not able to watch this game. This might have been one of, if not the most frustrating losses of the season. A game Auburn's not supposed to win. You know, on paper, Vanderbilt's a better team. They're now ranked. But when you look at the stats, Auburn outgained Vanderbilt's offense by 100 yards. Auburn only had 3 minutes less of time of possession than Vanderbilt had. That's not what Vanderbilt wants to do. Whenever you play Vanderbilt, what they want to do is control the clock. They want to make sure you don't have the ball whenever you play against them. They want to run the entire clock out on you. That way, they're not only just beating you, they're making sure you can't beat them by catching up. Alabama, 18 minutes of possession. We're able to put up 35 points in those. That game was a close one. Vanderbilt had 44 minutes and was able to win that, or 42 minutes. I think that's the correct number there. Then you go to the rushing yards. Vanderbilt was able to be held at 89 rushing yards. At Auburn, 88. When you go to the first half, I'm gonna start with the offense first, because the offense needs to be talked at, because this was the most embarrassing part of this team. You outgained this team. You had your best player on the offense, Jarquez Hunter, only touched the ball 12 times. He carried the ball 10 times in the first half, only twice in the second half. You can't do that. If you're wanting to win football games, Jarquez Hunter needs to be your workhorse on this offense. And the worst part about it is, in the post-game presser, he got asked this question because, you know, it was such a prevalent part. Everyone watching that game who knows the slightest little bit about what Auburn does as an offense, everyone had the same questions about this team. Where is Jarquez Hunter? Why was he taken out of the game plan? Why isn't he getting the ball 25 times a game? And Hugh Freeze answered this question and kind of, instead of saying something, I don't want to say smart, but intelligible, something that's mutually understanding by the fan base, would be more understanding by the fan base. He said he was gassed. Now, I don't know how often anyone else sees Jarquez Hunter on social media or whatever. Jarquez Hunter is incapable of feeling gassed. Jarquez Hunter is basically the closest thing that any Auburn player can get to being like Terminator. That's how athletic he is. He doesn't get gassed. He doesn't. I don't believe for a second that Jarquez Hunter was gassed in this game, especially after you look at last week where he rushed for 2 3/4 football fields the entire game. And you tell me after 12 carries and 50 yards, he's gassed? No, I don't believe that for a second. Not for a singular millisecond do I think Jarquez Hunter was gassed. And of course, if you add in the 21 yards of receiving that he got, I mean, that's 71 combined yards for him. Jarquez Hunter was not gassed in that game. I don't know what the excuse actually is that Hugh Freeze isn't just telling the fans or telling the press. I want to believe that it was a game plan issue. I want to say that the Vanderbilt hadn't been giving up many yards on the ground. Neither was Kentucky until Auburn played them. Vanderbilt had games where they let a team run on them. You know, I think Kentucky had 160 yards. Missouri had a player get 199 yards. But you go into this game, and I want to assume your game plan was they're going to key in on Jarquez. Let's let Damari and Jeremiah get some carries. And part of that game plan, you only let them get the ball 9 combined times, which is still less than what you gave Jarquez. And then in the second half, I don't really remember. I don't know if it's just Auburn didn't have that much time. I'm going to go through and make sure that I see if I can get this right. In the second half, Auburn had 5 drives. Auburn had 5 drives in the second half. And one of them I'm going to account for Auburn didn't have any time left. They had 1:42, and they fumbled the ball in the first play. So really you had 4 full drives, but you had 5 actually. But if you take away the last 2 drives where Vanderbilt just knelt the ball the entire time, take away those last 2, Auburn had 4, and then Vanderbilt had 5. So it's not the fact that Vanderbilt was just killing all this clock and you weren't able to do anything about it. You had time to adjust and flow and do something besides let them score 10 unanswered points in the third quarter. I don't get it. I don't get it. And I see Tim Tommy Taylor, what's going on? Susan Scales, War Eagle, to you as well. But looking at the last, Auburn has a bye week. That's the goal, the silver lining here. I almost said gold lining. Silver lining here is Auburn does have a bye week. We all get to enjoy a nice, happy week of Auburn basketball before we have, or 2 weeks of Auburn basketball, actually. Get to actually enjoy ourselves for a bit before we have to go back to watching Auburn football on our televisions. Because Auburn fans are the definition of insanity. We sit there and watch the games over and over again, expecting different results. That's Auburn football in 2024. Now, the quarterback conversation is going to be one that always gets talked about, no matter what it is during a game. If Peyton Thorne throws for 500 yards in the game, we talk about it. If he threw for 102 yards in the game and 3 interceptions, we're going to talk about that too. But an efficient game nonetheless from PT, 20 of 29, 239 yards and a touchdown. Touchdown coming from an absolute miracle of a catch. I don't know how in the world Valdo made that catch. I'm trying to paint a picture of it because it was like the best part of this game. He caught it basically an inch off the ground. Like it was just about to touch the ground. And 6'6" Valdo Fairweather was able to pluck it before it hit the ground. And then he went and juked out one guy, stiff-armed another, and then from I want to say the 3-yard line, he reached out full body and smacked the pylon with the ball. I don't know where Valdo has been in this game this entire season. Valdo has then again and again and again has proven that he is the most reliable target on the field, alongside Keandre Lambert-Smith, who had 4 catches this game and had a pretty decent game himself. But I just don't see why you have not been using Valdo like this. He had 5 catches. And I swear, if I would go through the game logs, I think this would be Valdo's best performance of the year because they finally decided to utilize him. But then there's instances where they didn't utilize him. Everyone, the wide open loop deal across the middle of the field is going to be a play that haunts me for the rest of this season. Because that's a play that could have changed and altered everything. Because after that happened, Auburn went 2 more downs and had to punt the ball. But Luke Deal was running a route. I agree. Valdo should have been there. It was also a terrible pass. But Luke Deal was wide open in the middle of the field. Wide open. And I think that from where he was, I don't think Luke Deal is the fastest guy in the world. I think he's more of a blocking tight end, so they didn't really account for him. So I think that's why it worked out. It was a beautifully drawn up play. But sit there and watch Peyton Thorne, and he overthrows or goes wide left of his target, and Auburn has to punt the ball later on. And then you go to, I want to say the third quarter. I'm trying to remember exactly when these plays happen. Auburn gets the ball at the 2-yard line, and this is going to be a coaching error because you're on the 2-yard line and you don't give the ball to Jarquez. I think you want to give it to him once, or you don't try to scheme up anything to get him opportunities because you kind of took him out of the game. But we saw Peyton Thorne try to throw a deep ball down the field, which Auburn doesn't take many shots down the field anymore. And it was kind of the efficient part of Peyton Thorne's game was the fact that he doesn't have to throw deep balls anymore because he can't make those throws consistently. He underthrows Cam Coleman when he has about 3 steps on a defensive back. And he's probably, I don't know of very many people who would catch up to Cam Coleman. Cam Coleman is 6'3". I think he would probably run faster than many of the players on Vanderbilt's defense. So I don't think he would have got caught in that sense. But that's just the miscues that you see. And it wasn't I could not sit here and tell you that Auburn lost this game because of Peyton Thorne, because they didn't. Peyton Thorne only threw 9 incompletions, 2 of them, of course, being, missed opportunities, but the rest of them, he threw for 230 yards, which, I mean, that's a very good passing game for Peyton Thorne in his Auburn career. I don't think I know very many times where he threw for over 220. And of course, the season he's 6th in the SEC in passing yards. He's 6th in passing touchdowns. Like, everything about those stats lets you know that this should be a different story we should be talking about. Auburn should be if you put these stats on any other team, we are talking about this team as a potential playoff contender or outside looking in type team. But you're sitting there watching them, and I don't know what it is. And it is a coaching issue. It is a coaching issue. It's a scheme issue. It's a game plan issue. Everything. The season took a downward spiral, really the second that Hugh Freeze agreed that he didn't want to get a transfer portal quarterback. He goes as far back as that. Because then you put a bunch of faith in Peyton Thorne, and then whenever you lose that faith in Peyton Thorne, you diminish his confidence by benching him for Hank Brown. You let Hank Brown go out versus New Mexico. He balls out. Then you're like, all right, he's going to be the starter. You go into Arkansas. Then you kill his confidence by taking him out of the game. You put Peyton Thorne back out there without any confidence. So now you have quarterbacks without the confidence that you've not distilled into them, because you've proven that, your job isn't really your job. Hugh Freeze recruits very well. Auburn has a top 5 class regardless of the record. You're just hoping and praying that signing day goes Auburn's way and all these guys sign with the Tigers, and then you go into 2025 and you're excited for this new recruiting cycle and everything. But then it's a cycle again. You have to go right back into, all right, awesome recruiting class coming in. What can Hugh Freeze do with it? We have quarterback of the future in here. We have a bunch of wide receiver talent. We have defensive talent galore. And that's what Auburn fans were thinking about going into this season. What did you see in the class of 2024? Quarterback of the future, wide receiver talent, defensive talent. And you're seeing all those guys ball out now, and now you have to sit there and get ready, excited for another group of freshmen to come in and play right away. It's just a vicious cycle, and I don't get any kind of fire freeze talk from me. But if Auburn gets halfway through the 2025 season, and these issues are still prevalent, if quarterbacks are not getting developed, if game plans are not getting drawn up correctly, if there are instances where the run game isn't implemented like it should be, or the quarterback is making dumb mistakes, Hugh Freeze is going to find himself looking for another job. It's going to be the same thing. If it's the same thing next year, Hugh Freeze will be fired before the end of the season. And then you have to sit there and hope and pray that you don't lose half of this class, or half of every class really that Hugh Freeze brought in. He's brought in 3. He's going to bring in 3 really good classes. And if he doesn't show the simplest bit of change, of upward, of an incline or an increase, these guys could all be gone. They could all be transferring out, and then Auburn's right back to where they were after they fired Brian Harsin. And then now you have to sit there and think, well, who are you going to hire next? That's the scary thing about what's going on right now in Auburn, because it honestly, the way Hugh Freeze answering questions, this goes back to that he was saying it was gassed. It feels like he knows he has another year. So the rest of the season feels like a wash. That's what it feels like. Because, I mean, a bowl season is not completely and utterly out of the realm of possibility. Auburn just has to win out. 3 wins and you're in bowl eligibility. Of course, everyone gets have a nice little 2-hour drive to the Birmingham Bowl. I wouldn't be opposed to that. You finally get to see some of these early enrollees go through and practice with the team. That's a great time for developmental prospects. I think you had DeMarcus Riddick was one of those guys. I want to say Amaris Williams was one of those guys. I know Walker White was, and Cam Coleman. I'm trying to think of all. DJ Barber. I want to say Crawford maybe, but you had a chance to see all these guys earlier on. You need that, and you lost a game that you needed to win to get there. You lost 2 games that you needed to win. Missouri, you chose to lose that one. Really, you did. You lost to yourself here against Vanderbilt. You beat Vanderbilt on the box score, but you didn't beat them on the scoreboard. Now you have ULM, should be a win. A&M, who just got their butt kicked by South Carolina, so the jury's out on what they look like whenever they play Auburn in 2 weeks. And then, of course, you have Alabama to round of the year in Tuscaloosa. So, offensively, I don't know what you do, but it's. Fire Free says this is solely an offensive coaching staff issue. They don't develop players. 3 different play calls, ridiculous time management issues, and reviews to plan for the players you have. Susan Scales says that too. It's not planning for players we have and maddening. And then the scheme is perfect. Coach, the players can't run it. That's a theme problem. That's a them problem. Get good scrubs. Fair enough. I mean, that works too. I mean, you're. And I go back to your earlier comment about not planning for the players you have, and Susan said that as well. It's like you're building for the future, but your future's not there yet. You're planning on Peyton Thorne turning things around for this offense, but you have 3 games left on this year, and Peyton Thorne's not going to be your quarterback next year. I think, and again, I'm not saying that Peyton Thorne is losing you games, but there are clear issues in his game that do hinder what the offense can do. You are simplifying a playbook for a 5th-year senior who has been here for 2 years. That's a problem. You cannot simplify a playbook for a guy who, I've been out of college now for 3 years, it feels like. Is it 3 years? 2 years. Peyton Thorne is my age. He is 24. I'm pretty sure 23. Let me make sure of that. I'm pretty sure I can get that pulled up. And 23. So Peyton Thorne's a year younger than I am. And he's a 5th-year senior in college. I would be embarrassed to be one of the oldest guys on the team and have to have the playbook simplified for me. Auburn shouldn't be doing that. The playbook should have been the game 1. I said Auburn should not have to turn the page on the playbook. They shouldn't have, and they didn't. When you get later on in the year, a Cal, I would even say, page 2, page 3. Down here, where we are right now in the season, Vanderbilt, ULM, this bye week right here, we should have the entire playbook in our grasp. That should be something you know from cover to cover and can run it like it's nothing. And you talk all season about how you have to simplify it. You have to limit the playbook for your quarterbacks. You should have to do that. And then regardless, when you say that you're simplifying the playbook, you immediately turn around and start calling stupid plays. I talk about the Luke Deal missed throw that's going to haunt me forever. Another play that's going to haunt me from this game. Why in the world you just converted a 3rd or 4th down, can't remember which one it was. The first play you call with a new set of downs is a wide receiver pass with your freshman wide receiver, Malcolm Simmons. And now, Malcolm Simmons is a dog. Absolute dog. I don't doubt for a second from what I've seen from him that he can make a throw down the field. He did everything when he was at Benjamin Russell. He passed the ball, he ran the ball, he caught the ball, he punted the ball, he kicked the ball. He probably held the ball for himself too on those kicks. He was a return man for both sides. I mean, he played defense. He did everything. I don't doubt for a second that sometimes in practice when you ran that play, he made that throw. But why in that play did you not tell him? Because I presume in that situation, in the practice or whatever, you probably didn't have guys hit him during practice. I would assume not. But whenever he's reading the defense. Keandre Lambert-Smith was the only receiver going down the field for that pass. Only one. I don't understand why you didn't alert to him that, hey, if he's not there, throw the ball out of bounds. Get the ball out of your hands. Auburn then took a 10-yard, it was not a sack, but it was a 10-yard loss on a run play, essentially, is what the box score says it is. Auburn then starts off 2nd and 20, 3rd and 20, 4th and something, and then a punt. It's dumb. It's dumb. It's stupid. Every single synonym for that I could possibly think of. Fire Freeze again. PT isn't a traditional scheme quarterback trying to run a complex gimmick offense. His skill set doesn't match the scheme. He would never be great, but the scheme makes him noticeably worse. I agree with that. Peyton Thorne is who he is. His ceiling was never that high. His floor, this offense really helps him get to that point. But we've seen they've schemed a way for him not to lose Auburn games. They've schemed for him to do that. But what they haven't schemed for is the rest of the offense. You're getting the ball out quicker. That's what they're trying to do. He's like, you can't blame the offensive line for this game, I don't think. I mean, he got sacked 3 times, of course, but I don't think the offensive line killed Auburn in this game. Maybe some penalties, but overall, I mean, your offense shouldn't be built around letting the offensive line have to sit there and block for 2 or 3 seconds. I mean, there was one play where I saw Peyton Thorne hold the ball for so long. Instead of getting the ball out, he finally decided to wait and wait and wait. Then he ran it. And then, at that point, your offensive line is already getting gassed from having to block. I've played offensive line before. I know what that's like. And you sit there and you run the ball after sitting in the pocket for like 4 seconds. And then at that point, you're basically asking for a penalty to get called for holding. And that's what happened. Auburn then lost 10 yards on that play when they could have got a first down. It's dumb. Former president Jimmy Carter said, "What worries me the most is that 2 cycles ago, we were so selective about getting a quarterback and evaluated Peyton and said, this is the guy." That is a major issue. And I guess you saw positives of his game and what he can do, what he did with Kenneth Walker, Michigan State. That was the storyline we took. I went back and I watched film on him, and that season I looked at that specific season because I didn't look at who his Michigan State team was that last year he was there. He still had Keon Coleman, of course, but you go and look and see like the running backs. Kenneth Walker carried that Michigan State team almost to a playoff spot. I sit here and tell you that I think Jarquez Hunter is a better running back than Kenneth Walker was. So I thought watching that and seeing what team he was coming into with this, it was like him and Jarquez might work out very well. I mean, I don't think Auburn's wide receiver core was awful last year. Jay Fair was really good. But you see some positive. He's a little mobile, which is one of the things that works out with the Hugh Freeze offense. And you go and you see what he can do with it in this RPO scheme. And of course, he had Robbie Ashford there too to kind of help mix in with that. And really, you go into this here, and I don't know. I would love to sit in the coaching, like the coach's office, with all the offensive coaches to kind of see what their thought process was with Peyton Thorne going into this season, because he's going into his 5th year. He didn't look great last year. He had instances where he looked terrible, but he wasn't bad. He was a mediocre, below average quarterback last year. And I want to see what their thought process was when they said we can help him reach a ceiling, which his ceiling is about where he's going to be at the end of the year. I mean, a lot of interceptions, a good amount of touchdowns, and 2,500 yards potentially. I think he's at 1,900 on the year. Let me fact check myself on that. 1,800, I think 1,825. 3 games left. He averages, I want to say like 200 something yards a game. He can hit his get his second highest, not second highest, but third highest. He's already passed last year. He has less interceptions than he did last year. He's potentially going to have more touchdowns. But I just don't understand what the thought process was when you decided not to get a guy. Not a dude, not another guy, not another quarterback, a guy. Like a Cam Ward. Cam Ward winning a Heisman would be the most ironic thing to ever happen to Auburn. I don't think he's going to win the Heisman. I think Travis Hunter and Ashton Jeanty are the two frontrunners. Ashton Jeanty, in my opinion, should get it out of the two. But Cam Ward, I think, would make a lot of these games turn to wins because you have an X factor. And again, I don't think Peyton Thorne a lot. I think there's a few games where Peyton Thorne did kind of lose you the game. Cal comes to mind right away. But there are a few games where you're like, all right, well, Cam Ward would have done a lot differently here. Cam Ward would have done this instead of that. Cam Ward actually played well at different levels of the sport. He played well as an FCS quarterback. He actually had to build himself up, go to Washington State, played very well at Washington State, and then, he asked for some money. He asked for $1 million, million or more, I presume. And, Auburn decided not to go with that, stick with Peyton Thorne, and now you're in the hole you dug yourself in. Hope and pray Walker White and Deuce Knight develop quickly, because I don't even know if Hank Brown stays at the end of this year. There's a good opportunity that before signing day, Auburn could go in the signing day with only one scholarship quarterback because of the confidence that you've killed in the room you already have. Let me say that again. Auburn could go into signing day with only one scholarship quarterback on roster because you demoralized the three other quarterbacks on this roster. And of course, Peyton Thorne's gone. He's going to graduate. He's going to go off to the workforce. Holden Geriner is obviously a foot out the door to the portal. And then Hank Brown, you better hope and pray he doesn't transfer out. He's your second best option going into next year, because you have, at that point, Auburn has to get transfer portal quarterback in this cycle. Without a doubt, Auburn has to grab a transfer portal quarterback. Not just any. No more Peyton Thorns in this portal. No more mediocre quarterbacks. If Auburn wants to turn things around quickly, you have to get an X factor guy. And excuse me, I don't know who that would be. I would love to look in the future and see who the transfer portal options are, just so I can have an idea of who Auburn isn't going to try to get. Eddie Darby, since he did not receive the snap, you can't just throw it away. You can throw it away in the direction of the wide receivers, throw it out of the back of the end zone. I mean, regardless, is it really that he can't throw it away? He'd have at least thrown it. I mean, if you throw it away at that point, I mean, you're throwing it down the field, throwing it out of bounds in the direction of Keandre Lambert-Smith. I mean, I don't think it'd be. I don't know. The rules are dumb. Fire Freeze said to Jimmy Carter, I think Freeze looks for physical traits instead of his specific mental traits needed to perform his scheme. And again, why would Hank Brown stay? He knows he has no chance with this head coach. Which the issue is, Hank Brown followed Hugh from Liberty. Not like a transfer or anything, but he flipped his commitment from Liberty to Auburn because he was going to sign with Liberty to go play for Freeze. And then Freeze gets hired at Auburn, so Hank Brown goes to Auburn. I mean, he wanted to play for Hugh Freeze, and then he got his opportunity to play for Hugh Freeze. He played well against New Mexico. And then you just showed that you don't think he can get it done after a half of play for Arkansas. And he had 3 interceptions on the box score. It looks bad. But if you watch the film and watch what those interceptions were, I think 2 out of the 3 of those weren't his fault. They were good. They were just good plays by the defense. One of them, I would count on him being a freshman. His first SEC game, I put one of those interceptions as him just being a freshman making a dumb mistake. But you've shown that you're okay with a fifth-year senior making those mistakes. I don't know why you would. I honestly think Hank Brown might be a potential transfer. I think he's out of the 3. College Football 25 reference. If you play the video game, I play it all the time. It's actually over here waiting for me. But you look at him, the potential chances of bringing him back. Peyton Thorne's gone. Holden Geriner, I think, is like on the hard no. I'm not coming back to this team. And then Hank Brown is like, I think he's teetering. I think he's on the verge of, what am I going to do? Does this coach see me as a viable option? Can someone else want me to play for them and start at quarterback for them? Because I don't think Hank Brown really goes into the next season as a starting quarterback for Auburn, at least. For Auburn. I don't think he goes the next season as Auburn starting quarterback. I think Auburn picks up a transfer to fill that spot. That way you can give a year for Walker White to get even more development than he probably has gotten this season. And you get opportunities for like Deuce Knight to wait around and wait for his time to shine too. So I don't know what you do with that. Worst case scenario from Fire Freeze again, Austin and or Cobb transfer after the season. If not after the season of not using Hunter. Oh, okay, I got you. So Austin and or Cobb transfer because they saw Jarquez Hunter wasn't getting utilized like he should have been. I got you with that one. Something I thought about too is what will I am eerily expecting a massive walkout per se. I don't know if it'll happen or not. I really hope it doesn't, for the sheer fact that I'm an Auburn fan. I don't shy away from that. I'm in the Auburn media space, and I love supporting my favorite team, the Auburn Tigers. And I want this team to succeed. I want Hugh Freeze to win 10, 11, 12 games and go to the national championship and give Auburn their third official ring. I want that to happen because I am tired of just hiring coaches just to fire them within a few years. I don't want to fire a coach after 3 seasons because at that point you would have 5 seasons of wasted coaches, of wasted time. I don't think Auburn should have kept Gus Malzahn. I think Gus Malzahn's time at Auburn was diminishing. I think everyone was aware that that Gus Malzahn wasn't going to ever get over the hump at Auburn. He had his chance in 2013. He had opportunities in 2017, and you blew some of it in 2019. I don't think Gus Malzahn was going to be at Auburn much longer after that. But it was time for him to go, and I think, you made a mistake with Brian Harsin. And when a bunch of coaches saw what happened with Brian Harsin, I don't think Brian Harsin was a good coach. I don't think he was. And you saw how that ended. Well, the coaching community will see that and decide not to go to Auburn. I'll say no to that job because that's how they treat coaches. And then you hire Hugh Freeze, a guy who, I think a lot of people expected him to come after Gus Malzahn was fired. But he comes along back to Auburn, and you give him a year. You have 5-7. Auburn to go to a bowl game last year. So yeah, or no, they did 5-8. Auburn got 5-8 last year. I'm blanking on everything at this point. But you sit there and watch that happen. I'm trying to pull that up. 6-7. Auburn won 6 games last year. I don't know why I thought that was up 5. You got 6-7 last year. Okay, well, maybe you can turn this around. You go in with a little bit of optimism. I bugged a little bit. I bugged a lot of it actually going into this year. I expected 8-4. And I would have been fine with 7-5. Or 7-6. I would have been fine with 7-6. I'm in a bowl win. I just wanted to see a steady improvement from this team. And I didn't get to see that. And I think it's an embarrassment to the fans that Auburn is sitting here at 3-6 with 3 games left. With right now, realistically, I think you're looking at 4-8, 1-7 in the SEC. I talked about this on the post-game show yesterday with the War Report is, the 3-9 season in 2012 was an easier viewing experience than what this team is. Because you watch the 2012 Auburn team go out there and get their butt kicked every week because they straight up just weren't a good team. They were just a bad team all the way top to bottom. Everybody that went in on that field wearing an Auburn jersey sucked. Every single player that went on that field looked bad. I don't think any of those players were bad. There were a lot of players that I hold dear to my heart that played on that team. But every single week, that team went out there and stunk. And that's a more enjoyable experience, and I look back on it fondly, whenever I sit down and watch this team play, because this team has instances where they look really good. Like I look at this team sometimes, I'm like, oh, well, if they do this, if they turn the corner on this, this is a winning football team. And then they sit down and they do what we saw on Saturday. Well, they sit there and do what they did against Oklahoma, what they sat there and did against Cal and Arkansas, and dare I say Georgia for that matter, and Missouri. This is not a bad football team, but I had to sit here every week and talk about how bad of a team we saw on the field. It's tiring. You know, I am so glad that this week Auburn basketball comes back onto my television, comes back into my life, so I can sit down and ignore Auburn football for hours of a day. Because that's what we can talk about Auburn basketball this week. I'm going to start off every single show this week with Auburn basketball. The pregame shows are going to still happen. Going to be later on. Auburn basketball is going to be the priority because they deserve it. Auburn basketball has happiness going into the year because they've gotten to the point where I expect greatness for Auburn basketball. And not only do I expect it, I get it back in return. And of course, March Madness sucked last year. It sucked so much. I bought a Harvard hat because I hate Yale now so much. But I go back into this season with open arms, ready to be a great basketball team because Auburn's a basketball school and an everything school. But I'm still going to watch this football team. I love Auburn to death. Dream school since I was 4. Cried like a baby when I graduated. And it just hurts sitting down and watching what I'm watching every week. It does. It's embarrassing to me. And it's embarrassing to the fans. And again, next year, Freeze is going to be back. And I don't think you're going to get a lot of optimism from the fans. I don't really think you are. I mean, I right now I don't think I'm going to bug at all the rest of the season for this football team. ULM might be the last time I get to pick this team to win a game, which sucks. It really does. I think after this week or after next week, I'm not going to pick Auburn to win another football game. But something's got to change. If Freeze is going to be back in 2025, you got to start building towards something. And I don't mean throw all the freshmen out there and just let them all, trial by fire type thing. I don't think Walker White's ready to play on the field yet. I don't think we'll see him versus ULM. I don't think we're going to see him for the rest of the season. Peyton Thorne's probably going to be your guy you put out there. I think you need to put out Hank Brown at some point. Hank Brown will probably be a good bet to put out there. Hugh Freeze, if you're listening, because I think that if you're trying to keep a guy that could possibly be on this roster next year, you need to use him. You need to. But I mean, we talked about the offense this entire show. We're 40 minutes into the live stream, and I've not even mentioned the defense yet. That's kind of a bad thing on my part. The offense, that's how bad the offense was. I spent 40 minutes talking about how bad the offense was. The defense, though, I mean, I think if there's one thing you can't get excited for, it's the fact that Auburn has a great defense. I mean, I think, if I remember who's actually said this, I think Mike G said this. Auburn's actually trending to have a better defensive season than that 2019 team did, which that 2019 team was a 9-3 team. That was ranked, lost their bowl game, pretty sure, but held not 9-3. Were they 9-3? Yeah, they were 9-3, I guess. But beat Alabama, held LSU to their lowest point total of that season, that season where Joe Burrow had an absolutely great year. This defense was awesome. Vanderbilt got held to their lowest point total of the season. Still lost, but regardless, 17-7. Diego Pavia, Auburn was able to rattle him a little bit. He was 9 of 22. For 143 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he needed a perfect throw for that first touchdown that he threw over Eugene Asante. And then the second touchdown, he needed Jay Crawford had to lower his shoulder and try to stop a tight end, which wasn't going to happen on a goal line. And then, of course, they got no sacks, but the front seven was able to contain Pavia to only 26 yards on the ground, 89 for Vandy, which is a great look. Those are all stats you want to hear. Vanderbilt was held to the lowest point total. Pavia was 9 of 22. He was only held to 26 yards. And if I told you that was going to happen in this game before, Saturday morning at 10 a.m., you would have went in that next hour expecting Auburn to win. If I went ahead and told you that, hey, get ready. Auburn's going to hold Vanderbilt to the lowest point total. Pavia's not going to be able to run or pass on this defense. And you're going to think Auburn's going to win. Didn't happen. But this defense looked great. I mean, Jay Crawford is the next Auburn great defensive back. I already expect him, if he continues the trend he's on right now, first-round draft pick in Jay Crawford. DeMarcus Riddick didn't really get to play early on in the year, but now that he is an outstanding player. And I want to go ahead and tell you that I called it before the season. DeMarcus Riddick, Malik Blockton, two guys I told Auburn fans to look out for. Both guys, dogs. Absolute dogs. As is Caleb Harris. Great player. Amaris Williams has looked outstanding. I'm so excited for the future of Auburn's defense. Auburn might lose every game next year 3-2. And you know what? The defense played great throughout all of that. Let's see. As bad as the offense staff is, defense staff is good. Players being developed, adjustments being made, productivity. Completely agreed. Auburn's defense played great. That's a national championship defense, said Matt Steele TV. I agree. Especially because you're seeing freshmen play and you're watching these guys get opportunities to make those plays. Jay Crawford got over the hump last week, got his first interception in his career. Monlin Gaines and Kinsley Faustin both played great in their time that they get in. Kyan Lee, even though he's a sophomore, I think he's emerged as a number one defensive back. Like, you're seeing all these guys, and I hate it so much for the guys who will not be on this team next year, like Eugene Asante. I hate it for Keontae Stott because he's had such an up and down year for Keontae. I'm trying to think of all the other guys. I don't know. Jalen McLeod, I think, has another year, so hopefully he'd be back. I think I have to get a list, but this defense looked great all year long. Keldrick Falk. If Keldrick Falk is not on an All-American list, I'm going to protest at the NCAA office or whoever decides that. I don't know who decides. I don't know if it's them or not. Keldrick Falk is one of the top defensive linemen in the country and deserves that respect. He's been great. At the bare minimum, first team All-SEC. Auburn has quite a few guys who should be on the first, second, and third team this year. Jay Crawford's going to be number one all-freshman team for sure, but I think he's played enough to be on those second or first team defenses too. His defense has played great. I cannot overstate how much I love watching this defense play. And it's so funny because it's with an offensive-minded coach, you expect the offense to be the focal point. No, this defense is outstanding. And they have some dogs coming in if they all sign. Some absolute dogs. I mean, Auburn opportunity to get a lot more guys to come in. I mean, I still think I still have my list. I mean, that still holds true. My top 10 recruits in the top 10 recruits in the state of Alabama. Look at name offered there, number one, and Zion Grady. I don't know, that might have changed since then. This has been an old graphic that I've had for a while. I don't even know Zion Grady's. He might still be at Ohio State commit. I've never heard. Yeah, he is. Yeah, I mean, looking at that, I mean, Neem Offord is a favorite for Auburn to potentially flip. And if Auburn gets that, that's 9 out of 10 the top 10 recruits in the state of Alabama. Actually, looking at that list again, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, and 10 are all defensive players. So, and of course, one of those guys being Jacayla Falk, little brother of one Keldrick Falk. So, Auburn's getting more dogs to this defense. So again, Auburn, yeah. If the offense just plays better, if the offense just puts up 24 points a game, hold on, if Auburn's offense, I want to just see here, what's like middle of the pack points per game? I want to say 24. If Auburn's offense could just put up 24 points a game, Auburn wins the Cal game. They go to overtime with Arkansas in that case. They only lose by 7 to Georgia. They only lose by 3 to Oklahoma. They beat Missouri, and they beat Vanderbilt. So if Auburn's offense only scored 24 points a game, then what we've seen, they score 15 points a game in conference play or just Power 5 play. If they just average 24 points a game in that matter, that would give them a 6-3 record. Right? Am I math on that? If I'm accounting for Arkansas being overtime, Oklahoma still be a loss. Georgia by 7. Yeah. Not accounting for the overtime, whatever that would be. I don't know what that would look like. 6-3, potential of 7-2. If the offense just averaged 24 points per game, it's stupid. It's dumb that you can't even put up that amount. Didn't Iowa Kirk Ferentz fired his son because he didn't average 24 points a game because the school told him he had to score 24 points a game. They didn't average that, and they fired the offensive coordinator. And you can't use a scapegoat. There are 3 guys calling plays. If Derek Nix called the Kentucky game, you need to give him all play calling duties because that Kentucky game was the best the offense has looked since New Mexico. I don't get this team. I don't get it. And another thing to that matter, a lot of these other issues could also be fixed. Some of these losses could be shifted if Auburn had a kicker. Alex McPherson didn't get to play this Saturday. I didn't hear exactly what happened, so I'm not going to try to speculate anything. But I do know he's been dealing with an issue all year long. So hopefully you get Alex. I don't think Alex McPherson will be back this season, and for his health, I want Alex McPherson to go back on the field. Next time I want to see Alex McPherson on the field. I want to be 100%. But at this point, if it's 4th and whatever, and you're in plus territory, you're on the other side of the field, and it's like 4th and 5 or shorter, go for it or punt it. No matter where you are. If you're on the 34-yard line, I think you can punt the ball from there. I trust Oscar Chapman. It's going to hurt his punting average, but I mean, if he gets a touch or not, if he gets like downs outside the 1, it'd be great. If you go for it, I mean, you can give them the ball in less territory than what they probably would get. You can't kick the ball anymore. Field goals can't happen anymore. We talk about how great the freshmen are. Per a lot of stats being utilized, Towns has had one of the worst seasons a kicker has had in the 21st century for an Auburn kicker, but also is having one of the worst kicking seasons in the NCAA this season. He went 0 for 2 on Saturday. His confidence is not there. I think he needs to see a few kicks go in a row to really get that confidence back and building the right direction. But until then, you can't put him out there for a 52-yarder. You can't do that. That's the dumbest thing ever, to put him out there for a 52-yard field goal or a 47-yard field goal when he hasn't had the abilities to really make those kicks before. Let me get the missed field goal. So let's see. He missed a 44-yard field goal in the first attempt. And then whenever you're down by 10 and it's 4th and 4, you try to kick a 52-yard field goal from the 34-yard line instead of just going for that. I don't get it. I don't get the thought process here. And again, the 44-yarder was 4th and 4. Play to win the game instead of finding ways to lose them. It's as simple as that. But Auburn's going into a bye week, and we have 2 weeks where we don't have to watch Auburn football, like day-wise. Of course, we have the next Saturday. But if you're looking for some enjoyment in your life, of course, November 6th, that is this Wednesday, Auburn basketball will take on Vermont for the first game of the season in Neville Arena. Get tickets if you're not already. I'm sure it might have already been sold out. Would not surprise me in the slightest because this team is awesome. And then, of course, November 9th, that is Saturday. If you're not, you don't have to watch Auburn football, but Auburn basketball will be on at 8:30 Central Time. taking on the Houston Cougars. So enjoy that week of Auburn basketball. We'll be talking about that all week long. Women's basketball, on the other hand, is taking on Southern Illinois on tomorrow, November 4th. We'll be talking about that game on Tuesday, recapping this great Auburn women's basketball team. Both these teams are going to be in March Madness, not play-in tournaments, like play-in games. Both, for Auburn women's basketball's case, they're both going to be highly seeded teams going into March. Cannot wait for that. But super excited for that. Not as excited to watch Auburn football in a couple of weeks, but Auburn basketball season has reached us, and we can finally ignore what we've seen on the field for the past season. So I'm going to go and get out of here. We've been talking about 50 minutes about Auburn football and how bad they've played offensively. So I'll go let y'all know. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at your boy Tank at YABOY. The Tank also follows right here on College Loop. We're getting close to 900 subscribers. We're getting even closer to 1,000 subscribers. So check us out on YouTube. Of course, all social media platforms at the College Loop. Visual Aid right up there. Visual Aid's right here. For my Twitter, at your boy the Tank, and my Instagram is just my name at Dylan Larck. Check me out over there. Also, don't forget to check out the audio version of the show as well on Spotify Podcasts, Google Podcasts, of course, Amazon Music, and of course, don't forget to check us out. Check me out every week on the War Report. I'm usually on Factor and I every week, so check me out over there. I don't know if I have to give a shout out for the War Report. I think pretty much everybody who follows us follows the War Report, so no shocker there. But of course, all that being said, this is the time of the College Loop podcast, and as always, and I'll say it anyways, because no matter what, I still love Auburn. So, War Eagle.